What if we told you that the world's oldest surviving civilization is barely surviving? That the land that gave the world its first universities, decimal systems, and philosophies is now known for caste wars, religious riots, and self-hate? What happened to Hindu civilization? Let's uncover the journey with pride, pain, and brutal honesty. When we were strong, then what went wrong? There was a time when India stood as a civilizational lighthouse for the world. Gupta-era, 4th to 6th century CE, known as the Golden Age of India. Aryabhata calculated pi, proposed heliocentric theory. Charaka and Sushruta laid foundations of medicine. Kalidasa wrote timeless Sanskrit drama. Art, architecture, and science flourished. India's share of global GDP was 30%, as per Angus Madison data. Trade routes stretched across Asia, Africa, and Europe. Spiritual philosophies, yoga, Vedanta, Buddhism, Jainism, spread worldwide. Social structure was organized but functional. Varna was linked to skill, not birth. We were not perfect, but we were strong. So what happened? A united civilization slowly began to fracture from within, and the cracks became doorways for invasions. Dalits, Shudras, and social dynamics, cracks in the mirror. We must not romanticize the past, but neither should we distort it. Valmiki, the revered author of Ramayana, was not born a Brahmin. Vedvyasa, who wrote the Mahabharata, was the son of a fisherwoman. Saints like Ravidas and Namdev emerged from so-called lower castes and were widely revered. Clearly, the ancient world knew fluidity. There was dignity in labor, and spiritual access wasn't caste-locked in the early eras. But over centuries, Varna turned into rigid caste. By the time the British arrived and introduced the first caste-based census in 1871, the cracks were already visible. They didn't create them. They simply saw the fracture lines and deepened them. Access to temples, education, and Vedic knowledge became restricted. Manusmriti and other texts were selectively interpreted to justify exclusion. Temple entry, well access, and education became symbols of privilege. This wasn't invasion, this was internal rot, and it paved the way for everything that followed. The invasions, when unity broke and enemies entered. Starting around 1000 CE, waves of Islamic invasions began. Mahmud of Ghazni attacked India 17 times, looting Somnath temple. Muhammad Ghori laid the foundation for the Delhi Sultanate. Mughals followed. Babur, Akbar, Aurangzeb, they didn't just conquer. They erased. Temples destroyed. Somnath, Kashi Vishwanath, Martan Sun temple, Hampi. Universities burned. Nalanda, Takshashila. Seats of global learning. Idols broken, manuscripts burned, culture dismantled, women enslaved, religious taxes imposed, mass conversions forced. And yet, some Hindu kings aided the invaders to defeat their local rivals. They chose greed over dharma, power over unity. We weren't just defeated, we let ourselves be defeated. The British, division by design, apathy by default. When the British arrived, they didn't just colonize, they reprogrammed us. The 1871 census froze fluid Varnas into rigid caste labels. Caste became official identity, used to divide, rule, and recruit. Missionaries depicted Hindus as uncivilized to justify conversions. The native economy, weavers, traders, farmers, was dismantled. And worst of all, educated Hindus adapted to it. Some upper castes collaborated for personal gain. Many stayed silent when their own countrymen were reduced to bonded labor. Few stood up for the rights of others because their privileges weren't touched. We didn't just lose our wealth, we lost our will to unite. Post-independence, still divided, still distracted. 1947 was supposed to be freedom. But the chains didn't vanish, they just changed shape. The British caste grid became part of our constitution. Temple control shifted to the government, not to communities. Caste remained the primary identity, used in elections, jobs, and benefits. And so we continued. Upper castes blamed reservations, lower castes blamed Brahmins, everyone blamed history. And while we blamed, politicians built empires on our divide. The tragedy? We still think we are fighting oppression, but the real battle is for unity. And we're losing it. Not just broken, but blamed. Yes, Hindus have suffered 1,000 years of invasions, mass destruction of temples, texts, and traditions, cultural genocide. But we must also say it clearly. Hindus allowed themselves to be divided. Upper castes failed to reform when it was time. Caste discrimination hurt our own people, even before it was used against us. And today we are remembered not as the wounded, but as the oppressors. Our story was rewritten, and we let it happen. This is not hate, this is not blame, this is pain. And the only cure for pain is truth. So we speak, not to divide, but to reflect, not to attack, but to rebuild, not to blame, but to rise. The Hindu civilization wasn't broken only by outsiders. It was broken from within, and then blamed from all sides. We can no longer afford silence. It's time for honesty, for unity, and for courage. Because if we don't learn from our past, we will become prisoners of it forever.